The air in the grand Busan ceremonial hall is thick with the scent of thousands of imported white orchids and the unspoken, razor-sharp judgment of the city's upper crust. It is a dual wedding of staggering, ostentatious luxury, designed to project absolute stability while balanced precariously on a knife's edge. The twin brides stand side by side, draped in near-identical, meticulously embroidered silk hanboks that shimmer under the crystalline glare of the massive chandeliers. Every fold of fabric, every heavy ornament pinned into their hair signals generational wealth. Yet beneath the flawless veneer, the guests whisper behind silk fans and raised champagne flutes, their murmured gossip rippling through the rows of gilded chairs like a low-frequency hum. The elder one got the playboy, poor thing, an elegant older woman mutters to her companion, shaking her head with a practiced sigh of mock sympathy. The dramatic irony is thick, almost suffocating. The audience watches these wealthy voyeurs revel in their own perceived insight, entirely blind to the truth. The original disaster ran in the exact opposite direction. Seo-yeon is not the victim they believe her to be, and the stage is set for an entirely different kind of ruin. Beneath the flower-laden canopy, the ceremony reaches its peak. As Taemin steps forward to deliver his vows, his voice drops its formal edge, deviating slightly but unmistakably from the traditional script. The words he speaks are soft, carrying a sudden, uncanny weight. They land word for word on a promise he made to Seo-yeon months into their first marriage, a version of him she has only ever heard once before, in a life he currently has no memory of living. The shock of the echoed sentiment hits Seo-yeon like a physical blow. She has to subtly shift her weight, bracing her hand against the silk of her skirt to steady herself as a wave of vertigo washes over her. The timeline is shifting. The cold, mechanical loop she intended to manipulate is bending toward genuine warmth far faster than she ever anticipated, and that warmth terrifies her more than any calculated cruelty. If he begins to love her again, the burden of her secrets will become entirely too heavy to bear. The scene transitions to the lavish reception hall, where the tension shifts from marital politics to corporate strategy. Olajide attends as a courtesy business guest, his tall, poised figure standing out among the sea of Busan's local elite. He navigates the crowd with practiced diplomacy until his eyes find Seo-yeon, who is standing near a towering arrangement of cascading hydrangeas and intricate hairpieces. They drift toward one another, seeking an island of sanity in a room full of performance. When they speak, the dialogue flows with an easy, unforced rhythm that neither shares with their actual partners. They bypass the standard pleasantries and immediately talk shop, diving into the deep, unglamorous economics of the beauty industry, heritage preservation, and the sourcing ethics of raw materials. Olajide looks out over the crowd, his expression thoughtful. Do you know most people buying your product have no idea whose hands it passed through to get there? Seo-yeon looks up at him, her gaze intense and entirely devoid of pretense. I think about that every single day. It's the only part of this whole business I'm not willing to compromise. As the words hang in the space between them, the atmosphere shifts. Something deep, quiet, and entirely separate from commerce passes between them. A recognition of shared integrity, that feels dangerous in its honesty. A taste of Choi cruelty. Across the ballroom, the fairy tale dissolves for the second bride. Seo-hee stands in a circle of older women, anchored by the formidable Mrs. Choi. The matriarch delivers a public, devastatingly polite humiliation, masking sharp barbs about the Han family's debts as a series of gentle, maternal worries. She smiles warmly as she speaks, ensuring that any onlooker would think she was merely offering sweet counsel to her new daughter-in-law. Seo-hee does not break. She smiles back, her expression a masterclass in flawless, unbothered poise. But the camera cuts close to her hand, hidden slightly by the drape of her sleeve. Her fingers are wrapped around the stem of a delicate crystal champagne flute, gripping the glass with such ferocious, white-knuckled intensity that a hairline fracture spiders up the crystal. The fragile boundary between her restraint and her rage is beginning to splinter. The calculated lie. Late that night, as the celebration winds down into the quiet shadows of the venue, Seo-hee corners Olajide alone in a dimly lit corridor under the pretense of discussing a potential business opportunity. Her voice is a soft, conspiratorial purr as she plants a meticulously calculated lie. With practiced subtlety, she drops a series of vague, deniable hints, implying that Seo-yeon's company is in deep, quiet financial distress, and that they have begun cutting corners on their celebrated sourcing ethics just to stay afloat. It is a small, toxic seed, engineered to lie dormant and detonate weeks down the line. Olajide listens politely, his face unreadable. He doesn't dismiss the information outright, choosing instead to file it away for verification, which is precisely the reaction Seo-hee calculated. The crack in secrecy. In a secluded alcove away from the remaining guests, Taemin privately confronts Seo-yeon. The gentle warmth from the altar has hardened into a sharp, piercing focus. "You knew about the scandal before it even happened," he says, stepping into her space. "And today, you said vows back to me that I haven't even thought of yet. What aren't you telling me?" This is the first real crack in Seo-yeon's carefully constructed wall of secrecy. Caught off guard, she scrambles to maintain her composure, deflecting his questions with half-truths about intuition, sharp business instincts, and simple good luck. Taemin's eyes narrow slightly. He doesn't fully buy the explanation. In the quiet calculation of his expression, the audience sees a definitive shift. He has decided to stop trusting her narrative and start paying very close attention to her every move. The narrative shifts to the cold, stark interior of the Choi estate. Choi Min-jae, heavily intoxicated and chafing under the oppressive control of his mother, lashes out at Seo-hee. He slurs a bitter, demeaning sentence that is almost identical to the exact line that drove her out of the house in the original timeline. But this time, the expected explosion of anger does not happen. Seo-hee does not flinch. She doesn't argue, nor does she look the slightest bit surprised. She stands completely still, absorbing the abuse with a chilling, detached calm. As she stares at him, the audience realizes with a sudden shiver that she isn't just enduring his malice. She is anticipating it, reciting her own internal reaction from a dark, well-worn memory. Back at the venue, the night draws to its inevitable close. Seo-yeon and Adeyemi share their last conversation before parting ways. The setting is darker, the ambient noise of the party replaced by the quiet hum of the night air. The dialogue slows down, stepping dangerously close to absolute honesty. Seo-yeon looks at him, the weight of the evening visible in her shoulders. "You said you weren't even supposed to be on those stairs." Adeyemi offers a faint, wry smile. "I took a wrong turn looking for an exit. Story of my whole trip to Korea, honestly." Seo-yeon pauses, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mine too, lately." Neither of them dares to name the invisible currents pulling them together, leaving the unspoken truth hanging heavily in the quiet night. Seed. The next morning brings no relief. The camera tracks a sleek, anonymous digital message as it is sent directly to an influential board contact within the Okafor group. Seo-hee is at her desk, her expression cold and clinical as she executes the second phase of her sabotage. The message forwards a detailed, fabricated dossier, citing severe sourcing ethics violations at SY Tresses. It is timed with malicious precision, engineered to land on the director's desk hours before the formal partnership agreement is scheduled to be signed. The detonation. The phone in Seo-yeon's office rings, shattering the morning quiet. She answers to find Olajide's head assistant on the line, their tone curt and formal. The assistant delivers a devastating blow. Olajide is halting operations and reconsidering the timeline of the entire partnership due to highly concerning internal information regarding SY Tress's ethics. Seo-yeon stands frozen, the phone pressed to her ear as the room seems to spin. She is completely blindsided, her mind racing to understand where the attack came from, entirely unaware that her own sister is the architect of her ruin. The full dramatic irony engine is now online, leaving the audience breathless for the coming confrontation. The panic of the betrayal hardens into cold, analytical fury. Seo-yeon locks herself in her office, pacing the floor as she meticulously maps out the timeline of the previous evening's after-party. She reviews every conversation, every crossing of paths, and every potential security vulnerability. She counts the minutes, analyzes who had access to the Okafor contacts, and tracks the specific phrasing used in the leak. The math is brutal, unyielding, and it only works one way. All roads lead to a single person. Her breath catches as the realization settles in, and she leaves the office to confront her sister, her movements controlled and careful, desperately praying that her logic is wrong. Unsettling laughter. Seo-yeon flings open the door to Seo-hee's private quarters. The confrontation is immediate, but it does not go the way Seo-yeon expects. When accused of the sabotage, Seo-hee doesn't offer a defense, a deflection, or even a drop of guilt. Instead, she throws her head back and laughs. It is a genuinely unsettling, discordant sound. Too loud, too sharp, and entirely unbothered by the gravity of the betrayal. Seo-hee steps forward, her eyes wild with a strange, triumphant malice. "You think this is the first time I've watched you almost lose everything and decided to help it along?" Seo-yeon steps back, her voice tightening as fear begins to mix with her anger. What is that supposed to mean? The room turns ice cold as Seo-hee confesses the impossible truth outright. She steps into the light, her voice dropping into a ragged, venomous register. She reveals that she has lived this exact week
The temple visit, the dual wedding, the corporate partnership, every single agonizing second. More than once. Not twice. Not 3 times. She has lost count of the cycles. She hints at the dark memory of her own deaths, though she refuses to name the mechanics of how she died. Her voice breaks with a lifetime of accumulated resentment as she points an accusing finger at her sister, framing Seo-yeon as the universe's spoiled favorite, who always lands lucky, no matter what variables are altered. I have done this so many times, Unni, Seo-yeon spits, her eyes welling with furious tears. And you always win. Every single time, without even trying.
The camera lingers on Seo-yeon's face as the true, suffocating weight of the situation settles into her chest. Reeling from the confession, she understands that her second chance was never a unique, divine gift handed down to her at the moment of her death. It is something far more terrifying, a recurring, inescapable loop. Worse still, she realizes she is at a massive disadvantage. Her sister has had an unknown, terrifying head start to learn the architecture of this prison, rehearse her cruelties to perfection, and exploit every hidden seam in the timeline to ensure Seo-yeon's absolute destruction. The narrative structure fractures completely, plunging the audience into a disorienting, rapid-fire montage of alternate lifetimes. The screen flashes with jagged cuts of past loops. We see Seo-yeon in different outfits, sporting vastly different hairstyles, yet always moving with the same predatory intent. She mouths near identical manipulative lines to different background extras in rain-slicked alleys and corporate boardrooms. No matter how the choices change, the sequence always circles back to the same terrifying anchor points: the grand temple staircase and the unmistakable cold glint of a dagger hidden somewhere in the frame. The audience feels the claustrophobia of her trap. She has tried everything, and she still ends up here. Demanding answers. Desperate for a foothold in reality, Seo-yeon flees to the mountain temple, confronting monk Haewon in the quiet sanctuary of the ancient wooden hall. She demands to know the rules of the game they are playing. Haewon sits perfectly still amid the drifting smoke of burning incense, his expression a mask of profound, ancient sorrow. He does not offer a direct explanation, choosing instead to deflect with a heavy, philosophical half-truth. "This isn't your story to end, child," he says softly, his voice echoing off the timber beams. "It was never only yours to begin." Seo-yeon shakes her head in deep frustration, entirely missing the profound clue she has just been handed for the final act of their struggle. Outside the sanctuary, the shadows stretch long across the stone courtyard. Tae-min, driven by his growing suspicion and a deep instinctual need to protect her, has followed Seo-yeon up the mountain trail. He stands in the deep recess of the temple doorway, entirely hidden from view, listening to the conversation inside. He catches only fragmented, impossible sentences. "This isn't the first time. I don't know how many loops." The camera holds tight on his face. There is no anger in his eyes, no corporate calculation, only a pure visceral terror as he realizes the woman he loves is entangled in something that defies the laws of nature. Back within the claustrophobic walls of the city, the second round of the sisterly confrontation erupts with
terrifying volume, now that all pretense of innocence has been stripped away. The voices echo through the empty spaces. Seo-yeon changes her strategy, dropping her defenses and appealing directly to whatever thin shred of shared history and sisterhood might have survived 28 years of quiet, toxic erosion.
"We could use this," Seo-yeon pleads, her hands extended in a rare display of vulnerability. "Whatever this is, together. Why would you rather burn it all down than ask me for help?" Se-hee looks at her, her expression hardening into pure stone. "Because every time I've asked you for anything in my entire life, you already had it before I finished the sentence." While the sisters wage their metaphysical war, the cold machinery of the physical world continues to turn relentlessly in the background. In the pristine, quiet offices of the Choi family empire, Min-jae's mother sits with a team of high-priced corporate attorneys. With systematic, icy precision, she begins constructing a legal case to nullify Se-hee's marriage based on forged financial documents and fabricated background checks. It is the exact same execution method that utterly destroyed Se-hee in the original timeline. The tragic irony is complete. The trap is being reactivated by people who have no idea she has already survived this exact disaster once before. The loop demands its tribute. The final minute of the act builds to a crescendo of quiet, terrifying tension. Seo-hee stands before her sister, fully unmasked, stripped of her victimhood, and radiating a dark, liberated energy. The rest of the world remains entirely blind to her true nature, but between the two of them, the war lines are permanently drawn. Seo-hee steps closer, a slow, razor-sharp smile spreading across her face as she delivers the line that resets the entire stakes of the story. "Now that you know what I am, Ani, let's see if knowing changes anything at all. Tell me, how do you break a loop when your enemy knows every move before you make it?" If this story has its hooks in you, hit that like button, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below, because you do not want to miss what happens next.